Trending today on Twitter was the IRS. Why? Well, for the past couple of weeks, a story has been circulating about a new rule proposed by Democrats. It's part of Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda. It would allow the IRS to track your bank account if you have at least $600. Not every single transaction, but a gross income and outgoing number. Now, the Democrats say this is part of the plan to tax the rich. Yes. There is so much lost tax revenue from wealthy individuals who are not paying their fair share. So, of course, we need to then track all bank accounts that have at least $600. Because last time I checked, people who have $600 are rich. Wait a minute. That doesn't add up. Well, even if you had $6,000, you're not rich. And to be honest, even if you had $60,000, you're still not rich. Now, admittedly, $60,000 is a lot of money. But if you're someone who has a family and that's your savings or your retirement, you're still not rich. So when your checking account has maybe $10,000 in it or $6,000 or $1,000, why is the IRS tracking you? You see, taxing the wealthy will not actually solve the problem of the loss in tax revenue. States are hurting for money. The federal government is hurting for money. And Joe Biden's got a $3.5 trillion spending plan that he claims the Build Back Better agenda in total will cost zero. And how do they claim this? Once again, lost tax revenue will be recovered. Interesting then. It seems like what they're really trying to do is tax the poor. They're going to be spying on your bank account. Now, some people have said this is basically just they're going to squeeze every penny out of every person they can. And some others have suggested something a bit more nefarious. Why? With the vax mandate going federal, with the Democrats proposing fines of $70,000 to $700,000, they fully expect people will lose their jobs. We already saw the largest healthcare provider in New York fire about 1,400 people. Those people ain't getting unemployment benefits. They've been kicked off of that. Crazy, right? Well, they got to get money somehow. So some have suggested, I'm not saying it's true, but it's an interesting point, that many of these people will turn to side hustles. Desperate to make money by any means, they'll do what they can. Maybe they'll play music in the subway like I did when I was a teenager. Maybe they'll sell knickknacks on the side of the road or take jobs under the table. Well, the IRS wants to know about that revenue. And with so many people expected to lose their jobs, granted, not millions upon millions, but a lot of people not working. You see where this is going. The IRS wants to know how people are funding themselves and feeding themselves. You see, it's not just about the vaccine mandates. There's also the question of, with nobody working, how are they eating? Now, a lot of people thought it was the unemployment benefits, but still, even with the end of the unemployment benefits, people still aren't taking up jobs all that much. Certainly, money has to be coming from somewhere. And the IRS wants to know if you have money, they can tax. So this is not a tax on the rich, my friends. This will overwhelmingly be a tax on the poor. However, one thing that many people have not considered, I see people talking about side hustles and COVID and lockdown, but no one's mentioned illegal immigration. Why, we've had, 1.4 million illegal immigrants come into this country? Now, certainly, they may begin working. Perhaps they can't open a bank account, but they do know someone or have some access to someone who does. All of a sudden, that person might start seeing more money come into their bank account. Perhaps it's the family member of one of these illegal immigrants who is legally allowed to work. And then their illegal immigrant friend or relative who came to this country recently, like the migrant crisis at the southern border is showing us, they might work under the table. They have to, right? They have to eat somehow. They then give the money to their friends, their relatives, their people who they have relationships with, who then deposit the money in their account. And the IRS then says, that's interesting. This person's tax return shows that they work, at Starbucks, but all of a sudden they're depositing an extra $400 per month. We want to tax that. There's a lot to consider in what's going on as to why this may be the case, but ultimately it is one thing, a tax on the poor, and people are calling them out. Well, let's read about this, see what's going on. And before we do, head over to timcast.com, become a member, and you'll get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, as well as members-only segments from Tales from the Inverted World, our mystery and paranormal and true crime show that we just launched. You see, your membership allows us to expand and create more cultural content. We got the Cast Castle vlog. We got Tales from the Inverted World. We got a new pop culture show coming up. It's going to be movies and video games. Because as a member, you're helping support the expansion of the culture. We want the ideals of freedom and liberty and America to come out not just in these conversations, but in the other content we make that is apolitical, so that people can build culture and show something positive, something that we can strive for. But don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Let's read some of the news about the IRS's new reporting requirements should it pass in the Build Back Better agenda. American Progress says bank tax reporting is a critical component of Biden's Build Back Better agenda. I want to show you this story from September 14th first, but before we read it, I want to go and look at the facts. The reason I highlight this is because I want to make sure you know this is the Democrat agenda, what you're seeing. Now let's talk about what's being said. From USA Today, fact check. Claim about the IRS monitoring bank accounts over $600 exaggerates reality. Does it? Let's read. USA Today says the claim. Treasury Department declares IRS will monitor transactions in all U.S. bank accounts over $600. Biden's Treasury Department declares the IRS, okay, so they said that already, reads a headline from InfoWars. The same claim popped up in various iterations on social media, claiming Biden's proposal would give the IRS direct access to your bank transactions. While the claim is based in reality, it gets many of the facts wrong. The claim's assertion is a proposal by the Biden administration, not a decision set in stone. The Treasury cannot declare any changes to law, as that is a legislative power that belongs to Congress. Fact check, USA Today. False. While technically true, they're not supposed to be able to do it. Repeatedly, Joe Biden has enacted law through edict, bypassing the Supreme Court and the legislative branch. So yeah, they're just ramming things through. But okay, technically they're correct, they say. Even if the proposal is adopted by banks, would not provide access to individual transactions, just the total amount flowing in and out of an account annually. Interestingly, there's a lot of problems with this proposal. Let's say I take out $100 from my bank and then I put the $100 back in, and then I take the $100 out and then I put the $100 back in, and I keep doing it. And then they say, wow, this bank account with $600 has like 300 transactions for $100. Something must be going on. And they don't know what. It's the same $100. I gave it to no one, but there it is. Certainly, I don't think they would look too much into that. So it's kind of a moot point, or it's kind of pointless to say. But what will really happen is that at the end of the month, when they're like, this guy who works at Starbucks for $10 an hour, all of a sudden has $20 an hour in income. He's not reporting where that income is coming from, and we can see it. Do you think rich people are stupid enough to fall for stuff like this? It's a tax on the poor. Now, interestingly, while USA Today's fact check is like, oh, it's exaggerating reality, we have this fact check from 10 TV CBS. Yes, Biden's proposed legislation would allow the IRS to have more information on bank accounts with more than $600. U.S. reps from 9 states, not including Ohio, sent a letter strongly opposing this proposal to Speaker Pelosi, the IRS commissioner, and others. And now we'll come back to that. But yes, my friends, this is absolutely real. And here's what the left is trying to claim. Now, in my opinion, this is the propaganda of all propaganda. But let's read. American Progress says the United States will lose an estimated $7 trillion over the next decade from people and corporations not paying the taxes they owe. That is twice the $3.5 trillion of investments that Congress is now considering in the budget reconciliation bill. The richest 1% of taxpayers alone are responsible for an estimated $163 billion in unpaid taxes each year. Yet due to IRS budget cuts, the IRS lost thousands of experienced enforcement personnel capable of thoroughly examining complex tax returns. Audit rates of high-income Americans and the largest corporations have plummeted, draining revenue and resulting in an increased share of examinations focused on recipients of the Earned Income Tax Credit, who are much more inexpensive for the IRS to audit. The status quo benefits from wealthy tax cheats to the detriment of ordinary Americans. It also reinforces economic inequality, including the stark income and wealth inequities by race. And there it is, social justice. All right, let's be real, okay? Just because a rich person is rich doesn't mean they're hurting anybody. Now, a rich person who is rich, who uses their money to hurt people, okay, well, then they're hurting somebody. But the idea that simply because someone is rich and they're not paying the government does not mean anyone is being hurt by it. Granted, I am no fan of the wealthy elites. I am quite populist. I agree with a lot of what Steve Bannon says. Steve Bannon says tax the rich. Hey, I agree. Here's what I don't agree with. Just giving the government more power. Yeah, I'm sorry, that doesn't solve the problem either. But I don't like the idea of disproportionate power among wealthy elites who can manipulate our elections through massive spending and lobbying and all that other garbage. It's a complicated system. Maybe the best one we got for now until something better could be thought up. But for the time being, I don't know if we're there yet. Either way, I don't like the idea of Michael Bloomberg and Mackenzie Bezos or George Soros or Koch brothers or anybody dumping money into our elections. That being said, if it's a meritocracy, those who are able to accumulate wealth have a disproportionate voice in the system. And that I get. Let's read. American Progress says the richest 1% of taxpayers alone are responsible for... Sorry, let's read on. They go on to say President Joe Biden's plan to improve tax enforcement is aimed squarely at fixing the broken and unjust status quo. The Biden plan has two main components. One is to fund IRS enforcement of high-income individuals and corporations, modern technology, and better taxpayer service. The second is to give the IRS greater visibility into opaque forms of income by requiring banks and other financial institutions to report very basic information about accounts. This column explains how the bank information reporting proposal will alleviate the two-tiered system of tax compliance, preserve taxpayer privacy, enhance the IRS ability to detect indications of cheating, result in fewer audits, raise revenue for essential investments. Boy, is this some 1984 doublespeak. I love that. Preserve taxpayer privacy by getting more information on middle class and lower class bank accounts. That's absolutely going to take away privacy. There's no question about it. But they expect you to be stupid enough to believe it. And they go on to mention that it's favoring the wealthy, blah, blah, blah. Certainly, I absolutely believe the tax system favors the wealthy. Let me give you an example. All right, let's say that there is a CEO of a company who pays himself $1 million a year. And the company has a revenue of, like $13 million a year. He then comes out in the press and says, you know what? I should not be getting $1 million a year when my employees are not getting near that much. I've got an idea. All of my employees will now make $80,000 a year. And I'm going to lower my salary to $80,000 as well. And the left cheers and they clap and they say, wow, this is what CEOs should be doing. They should absolutely be paying fair wages and raising the salaries for all of the employees. Here's the best part. When you pay yourself a salary, you have to pay a 7.5% Social Security tax. I could be getting the gist of this wrong, but the general idea is CEOs don't want high salaries. Jeff Bezos pays himself $83,000 a year. He then gets $1 million in bonuses, and plus he has his stock incentives. All in all, he makes about just over $1 million a year. But why is his salary so low? Because profit is considered, I don't know if it's passive income or it's just considered profit, but it's not taxed like wages. You save a lot of money when you as a CEO pay yourself less. The left doesn't understand this. But the reality is, when you have a massive and complicated tax code, rich people will always be able to afford the right accountant who can tell them how to save money and utilize the tax law to the best of their abilities. Listen, I'm not saying rip off the IRS or steal or not pay their fair share. I'm saying it's very, very simple. A CEO goes to their accountant, and the accountant says, there's a tax deduction for people who wear clogs. I think your business does, you do have people in the show wearing clogs, right? Well, we did do 3 episodes of that one show where people were wearing clogs, and they'll be like, there you go, you qualify, and they'll check it off and you'll save money. There's also losses and tax harvesting and a whole bunch of other stuff that rich people just know what to do so they're not paying massive amounts of taxes. The reality is rich people pay dollar for dollar more taxes than poor people. Or I should say, just on the dollar, the hard numbers. Percentage-wise, rich people often pay a lot less. Why? Well, it's like I mentioned. Instead of paying yourself a salary and paying into that 7.5%, just pay out profits. Just pay out in profits. Now, what I'm told is that the IRS looks for this kind of stuff, but there's still ways to manipulate, or I shouldn't even say manipulate, just to utilize tax code to the best of your abilities with a good accounting firm and a lawyer so that you're paying the IRS the bare minimum of what you have to pay them. Poor people don't have that luxury. They pull up TurboTax or whatever, H&R Block. They put in their information to the best of their abilities, and then they end up paying, not realizing they miss a bunch of deductions. Now, those who have the ability to actually pay a premium can hire these companies to search for every deduction. And then they do, and then it turns out they don't get one, they lose money, and so people are like, look, just give me my refund, yeesh. What ends up happening? When the IRS rolls out a plan to actually just take a look at any account with $600, rest assured, you all, one day you will get a letter and it will say from the IRS, and they'll say, explain this revenue. And you'll have to do it. And there are interesting conundrums here because let's say you get paid $1,000. You then take out that $1,000 in cash and you put it in a shoebox under your bed. And then maybe a few months later, you decide, you know what, that was a dumb idea, and you put it back. All of a sudden now, for that 1 month, it shows that you have an additional $1,000 going into your bank. And then what? The IRS says, that's weird. Where'd that $1,000 come from? Now, I think they've got computers that can track this stuff, and it wouldn't raise a red flag in that capacity. They'd be like, well, he did minus $1,000, so maybe they'll ignore that one. But what happens if you consistently have 50, every other day? Sounds like you might be working a job under the table or taking money from other sources. And there you go. The IRS wants its cut. And I'll tell you this. If you were to tax the rich, 100%, it would not fund the budget. 100%. It would not reach $3.5 trillion. Bezos is worth like $100 billion. Yeah, you're not. I don't even think you get to $1 trillion, to be honest, in private wealth of the wealthiest individuals. They want $3.5 trillion for this spending bill. Think about that. $3.5 trillion. Now, hold on there a minute. What if you tax everyone, including the rich? Now you've got 330 million people, and you can tax them at ever-increasing amounts on every single check. And, well, you're not taxing babies. So let's say 230 or, 200,000, 200 million individuals. The point is, you make more money taxing poor people than you do taxing the very few rich. You can tax the rich people at a lot. Let's say you tax Jeff Bezos at 50% of his income, and they probably do. He's a millionaire. Congratulations, you got $500,000 from taxing that one person. Let's say you tax 1 million people $1. Well, they don't really notice the loss of the dollar, but congratulations, you've made $1 million. The incentive for the IRS is taxing the poor. And I think it's wrong. But you know what? This is what Bloomberg is. This is what the Democrats are. This is from November 24th, 2019, because Bloomberg was running for office and he was putting out all this stuff. This is for Americans for Tax Reform. Bloomberg says raising taxes on poor people is a good thing. You ever see that meme, we are the 47% or whatever? They were saying, I think it's back during Occupy, that only 47% of Americans actually pay income tax. The truth is, wealthy people are, I think, the wealthier individuals in this country are the ones actually paying in a net gain for the government, and lower middle class to lower class people are actually a net negative on the system. That means if you are a poor person, you pay taxes to a certain degree, not a whole lot, but you receive greater benefits in the long run. So it's almost like you're being subsidized. I actually agree with this system. Completely agree with it. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a staunch libertarian. I'm just libertarian spectrum. I lean slightly left, and I like the idea that we're only as strong as the weakest link. Wealthier individuals pay slightly more in taxes because it's less impactful on their lives. And as someone, my circumstances are, I do particularly well. I absolutely am okay with helping poor people. Now, there are a lot of problems with the tax code, notably taxing people at, the final tax bracket, I think, is like 250 and up. That makes no sense. Somebody who makes $10 million a year, a CEO, has substantially more leeway and power than someone who makes 250. And taxing someone at 250, someone who makes 250 at like 40 some odd percent, makes it substantially harder for them to climb up and become wealthier. Effectively, you're getting this elite class that makes so much money you'll never catch up. And they don't care if they're paying more in taxes within reason, because they have substantially more to invest and spread around and never have to worry about working again. Someone who makes $250,000 has to work. They can't just quit their jobs. Somebody who makes $10 million could literally work for 1 year and then retire if they wanted to live like humble middle class living. But honestly, if they retire with $500,000 and they put it into the right accounts, they never got to work again. They will be independently wealthy for the rest of their lives, and they're being taxed at the same rate. The problem I have with the tax system is that ultimately it just gives the government money. So let's be real. Bloomberg's plan of taxing the poor, and he was running as a Democrat, and let's be real. The Democrats didn't really like the guy, but they certainly loved his money. What this is authoritarianism. He says this, look, quote, "Some people say, well, taxes are regressive. But in this case, yes, they are. That's the good thing about them, because the problem is in people that don't have a lot of money. And so higher taxes should have a bigger impact on their behavior and how they deal with themselves. So I listen to people saying, oh, we don't want to tax the poor. Well, we want the poor to live longer so that they can get an education and enjoy life. And that's why you do want to do exactly what a lot of people say you don't want to do. The question is, do you want to pander to those people, or do you want to get them to live longer? There's just no question. If you raise taxes on full sugary drinks, for example, they will drink less, and there's no question that full sugar drinks are one of the major contributors to obesity, and obesity is one of the major contributors to heart disease and cancer and a variety of things. So it's like saying, I don't want to stop using coal because coal miners will go out of work, will lose their jobs. We have a lot of soldiers in the U.S. Army, but we don't want to start a war just to give them something to do. And that's exactly what you're saying when you say, well, let's keep coal killing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you get the point. He's saying, tax the poor. They dumb. Look at them drinking them sugary drinks. I cut out all the sugar. Just been eating meat, cheese, and dietary fiber, veggies and stuff like that. Good old asparagus and a small steak. Boy, do I feel better. Get that processed garbage out of your life. I didn't need someone to come and take everything away from me in order to get me to do it. Isn't that weird? That I, of all people, could buy all of the cupcakes at the store right now. But I said, hey, wait a minute. I won't do that. So what about being poor and not having the ability to buy all of the cupcakes makes people buy the cupcakes? Perhaps there's a correlation between the ability to raise lots of money and start a successful business and eating healthier. But I'll be honest, over the past year, I was eating bad. Yeah, I don't think I was like the worst eater, because I would eat I was trying to avoid processed foods and breads and stuff, but I'd still have snacks, chips, fruit snacks periodically, thinking, oh, it's, we got the good organic fruit snacks. The ingredients are like, pectin and real fruit, still eating a ton of extra garbage. And you know what? It was a choice. It was a choice of will. One day was like, I don't want to eat that stuff anymore. I just don't want to. One day it was like a switch flicked and I said, nah, I'm not doing it. Pull out the fresh meats and some cheeses and I'll make a wrap or something. Lettuce wrap. They're delicious. And that's what I've been doing. We got these excellent keto bars. No one had to tax me. I didn't have to be coerced. I just had to make that choice. People like Bloomberg and the Democrats, these are the people saying, we don't care what you want, what you think, or why you do what you do. You shouldn't have that right. Well, I suppose this. If everyone was eating healthier, universal healthcare would be a lot easier and our healthcare costs would be going down. Life expectancy would be going up. But hey, we're a country where people have the individual right to choose. And I respect that. Now, if somebody wants to be morbidly obese, that's their choice. Don't make me pay for it. I suppose in the long run, it's bad for the country. It really is. No, seriously. I mean, we need strong, capable individuals and charismatic leaders. And we're becoming a nation of, lethargic layabouts. And that's unfortunate. A lot of people have decided to decide, we're going to take care of ourselves. And for me, it's all part of this holistic approach to everything I'm doing. Going out, raising our own chickens. We now have 15 because they had babies. We're having our own chickens. And then we'll eat them when the time comes. Not all of them. The original cast of Chicken City, I think they'll be safe. But we got a lot of chickens. And so we'll see what happens. Eating healthy is part of that. If somebody wants to be morbidly obese, I would encourage them to lose weight. I would say, cut out the sugary drinks. You don't realize, man. I saw a meme. This was big for me. And it showed like 3 jelly donuts. And it was 800 calories. And then it showed like a large, Starbucks drink or whatever. And it was like 796. And I'm like, yo, people go to Starbucks or McDonald's and they're like, I'll get a large mocha frap, thinking there's not that many calories. It's just a drink. Or they'll get like a cappuccino, like a mocha cappuccino, thinking, and it's got 500 calories in it. People need information, not coercion. But as Vox tells us from back in 2016, Democrats are replacing Republicans as the preferred party of the very wealthy. That was back in 2016. Isn't that amazing? That you've got Steve Bannon, of all people, helped Trump get elected, a Republican, saying, tax the rich. They call him far right. Man, if that's far right, I don't even know what's going on anymore. The reality is far left and far right just basically means, are you in the cult or are you not in the cult? Because the far left is the cult. There are creepy conspiracy weirdos on the right for sure, but there are creepy conspiracy weirdos. The left and its establishment is a bunch of Authoritarians lining up saying, tell me what to do. And I'm not a fan. Michael Bloomberg is an authoritarian. He is a neoliberal despot. That's not what this country needs, and that's not what will make this country strong. We've seen it time and time again. Centralized authority, manipulation, spying, they lead to dark and dangerous paths. And maybe that's it. I think about ancient Rome. And eventually, the system becomes too large and corrupt to maintain its own girth. We have become a lethargic and sedentary nation, as it were, a nation of cowards. I'm not saying you're a coward. I'm not saying everyone's a coward. I'm saying we have too many cowards. That they simply say, these politicians, Democrats and Republicans, that's mainly who I'm referring to, cowards, who will just say to themselves, let me ride this one out and then get enough to buy some property. To hell with everybody else. What we need are leaders. And we don't have leaders. We have extractors. A leader is someone like Rand Paul, I guess, who says, I believe that what I'm doing is going to help people and I'm going to fight for freedom and liberty. And he strives, and I believe this of Rand. I don't think he's perfect. I don't think anybody is. He strives to say, what can I do to uplift my fellow Americans, and namely my constituents? Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, their whole thing is just like, how can I get some for myself and play this game? I really don't think they care. I'm sorry, I just don't. Lindsey Graham especially. How that guy keeps getting elected is laughable. Seriously. What are y'all doing? Vote for somebody else. Primary the guy. Mitch McConnell, too. For too long, we've sat back and watched Democrats and Republicans do the same old garbage game. Democrats started saying, we're going to primary people. It's about time Republicans do the exact same thing. Because I'll tell you this, the Republican Party is garbage. They do nothing. They sit around on their hands while the Democrats just go scorched earth. So here's what you need. You need some libertarian individuals, some freedom-minded individuals. And if their whole thing is, no, I'm going to let you do your thing and tell the government no. I'm like, we good, right? How do we do that? Primaries, my friends, primaries. Otherwise, if you sit back and watch the IRS continue expanding on what they're expanding on, the Democrats pushing this, if it gets passed, if the Democrats can continually just siphon money from the American people through massive inflation and borrowing, printing of money, it's going to hurt your pocketbook. And don't forget what you see back in the day. IRS apologizes for aggressive scrutiny of conservative groups. There it is. From 2017, NPR reports. An illegal settlement that still awaits a federal judge's approval. The IRS expresses its sincere apology for mistreating a conservative organization called Linchpins of Liberty, along with 40 other conservative groups in their application for tax-exempt status. Incredible. Where are the Republicans to do anything about this? And you expect me to vote Republican? Come on. I get people being like, Tim, it's either that or the Democrats. Oh, please. And, I'm looking at the do-nothings and the lunatics, and I certainly get why people voted for Trump. And why people voted against him. A lot of leftists genuinely were like, they said it's easier to overthrow a feeble old man than it is a fascist. And that's what they meant in Joe Biden. There were a lot of leftists who were like, voting for Joe Biden is accelerationism. And they were like, from the ashes of the old, we shall build anew. And I'm like, oh, geez. The Trump agenda was like the real build back better. Trump had greatly improved the economy and things were not perfect, but they were getting better. Americans were loving it. Now we're back to the extraction economy. Now we're back to Joe Biden and the Democrats. Joe Biden was vice president before. The wealthy elites making their friends and family wealthy. And in order to pay for their plan, they'll tax you. Look, do they really want to tax the rich? No, they're rich. That's the funny thing about all of this. When the senators and members of Congress, not every member of Congress, but the senators especially come out and they're like, we don't want to tax the rich, or they just don't talk about it. It's because they're looking at their wallet being like, why am I taxing myself? That's stupid. They don't get paid all that much money. I think they get like $174K a year. But most of these senators are millionaires. They don't care about you. They're not going to tax themselves. They're going to tax you. If they're like, look, if we raise taxes on ourselves by 5%, we lose a lot of money. And the government doesn't even raise that much. Let's just take $1 from 1 million people. Better yet, let's take $1 from 200 million people, and then we raise $200 million. Just like that. If they were to tax all of the rich people, they wouldn't get anywhere near that much money. So taxing the rich doesn't make them enough. The left might want, they come out and they say taxing the rich does make sense. Taxing the rich in certain circumstances makes sense. What I mean is, I think I think we should renormalize the progressive tax system. So it should be lower for the poor, lower for the middle class. It should be, whatever it is that people between like 100 and 200 are paying now should be slightly lower. People who are paying 250 should be slightly lower. And then after 500, you pay what like people paying 250 are paying. And so what happens is you scale up, creating more tax brackets. Again, I don't know if it's a solution because just giving the money doesn't solve anything, but I don't like the idea of the ultra wealthy using their power to like get guns banned and violate our rights, which is what Bloomberg and a bunch of other, billionaires were trying to do. I also think there is an issue of people needing to stand up for themselves, to push back on this, because many people voted for Joe Biden. And if the people want this stuff, well, they voted for it and they weren't paying attention. You have a media. What was it? We talked about this the other day on IRL. Don't want to be an American idiot, one nation controlled by the media. Wow. Yeah, there you go, Green Day. And now what do you have? You have people absolutely just following in lockstep with the media's agenda, which serves the political interests, keeping the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And it's because people keep voting for this stuff. So at a certain point, I say, look, I'm going to go out and get some chickens, grow my own food, and just get away from the city and try and be more responsible for myself and stop expecting that anyone owes me anything. Because at the end of the day, if people are unwilling to stand up for themselves or get your back when you do stand up, then you can only really fight for yourself, right? And that's the scary message that many of these false leaders have. They don't care about you because they don't think you'll defend them. We need to change that. So we need to spread the message and say, I will get your back. When people get suspended or banned, we need to help have them, give them their voice back. If I say I oppose censorship, then I will actively oppose it. I will host Alex Jones. I will host Steve Bannon. I will host Enrique Tarrio. I will host those who are censored. I will have those conversations because I oppose the censorship. And then we will set up a speakeasy over at timcast.com, a speakeasy where the tendrils of big tech can't go. I mean, they can try, and they do have access in some ways. But for the most part, it's a protection. I'd say this to those in New York. If they were operating a restaurant and they said, okay, we're going to adhere to the vax mandate. Oh, by the way, we also have a private owners club where you can invest for a crowd investment of $5, which makes you a permanent owner. Of course, owners are allowed to come in the building and don't require vaccination. I'm not saying it's exactly true, but there are ways of standing up for what you believe in. And I think more people need to. For the time being, thank the Democrats for taxing the poor. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.